Good afternoon and thank you. I appreciate your attendance. As a result of numerous inquiries that I have received personally concerning the recent meth lab arrest, I've been asked to do a news conference. I didn't think it was appropriate for me to, because I want to emphasize this is not a New York State Police or Clinton sheriffs or the DEA or any of the other agencies here. This is a concentrated effort by all regional law enforcement that are here. I'd like to introduce each of the individuals up here. Hopefully I don't forget anyone. First of all, Andrew J. Wiley, Clinton County District Attorney. James R. Burns, Assistant Special Agent in Charge, DEA. Clinton County Sheriff David N. Favreau. Sergeant Station Commander Dana R. Padawano from the New York State Police. Brian G. Gallucci, Assistant Patrol Agent in Charge, U.S. Border Patrol. To my left is Chief of Police Desmond J. Orozco from the Plattsburgh City Police Department. We have the acting resident agent in charge, Anthony J. Trone from HSI, and then DCI Lieutenant Brent M. Davison from the New York State Police. On behalf of HIDA Director Chauncey Parker and Major Richard Smith, Brigade Commander, they would like to extend their regrets that they were unable to attend this due to the short notice and their previous commitments. Director Parker has been a great asset to the North Country in his efforts as the director of the New York, New Jersey HIDA to combat the drug situation that is plaguing this area and continues to do so as the law enforcement entities attempt to identify, apprehend, and remove the individuals responsible for this. And also Major Richard Smith, who's the troop commander, obviously, for the New York State Police. He's the one who provides the resources for us on a local and regional level to be able to do this. Each of these people are going to speak. They're going to give the nuts and bolts of this. I'd like to emphasize that this is a national, not just a regional trend. This is not occurring just in Plattsburgh. It's occurring throughout the area. It is very costly, not only to taxpayers, but to the communities and to the individual lives of the drug addicts. Also, as devastating as methamphetamine is, I don't want to lose sight that there are several other drugs that law enforcement is currently investigating in this area and targeting, including prescription medication, that is also devastating. Meth labs, by their very nature, as we'll explain, pose unique threats. And also there's ramifications from drug addiction and from drug use, and that is, I have not personally, and I don't think anyone here has seen a drug addict who is able to support their habit without resorting to some other criminal activity, whether that be larceny, burglary, robbery, or being a drug dealer themselves in order to support their habit, and also homicide. The recent arrest that have occurred, we have mugshots, photos that are on the front. The one in Moore's Forks on the 13th is there on the front table. At this point, I would ask that District Attorney Wiley come up to the podium and he can speak concerning the prosecution aspects of sentencing.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming today and my fellow law enforcement members that are present. Since July 13th, we've had 5 separate investigations regarding meth labs in our county. 4 of those I will talk about today. The 5th one is still under investigation, and I will make any comments regarding it. On July 13th, 2012, we had a meth lab discovered down at the Villa Motel in Keysville. That motel, the owner of the motel came upon one of the tenants where the unlawful manufacturing of methamphetamine was occurring. The police were called. The individual who was arrested, Sean Dushlaw, attempted to dispose of the evidence as well as throw some of the physical evidence upon the owner of the motel, and as a result of that, several charges were filed. On July 17th, just 4 days later, in Eleanor Way here in the city of Plattsburgh, we had another arrest that occurred, resulting in the unlawful manufacture of meth. The unlawful manufacturing of methamphetamine is a Class D felony. For a first-time offender, the maximum sentence is 2 years in state prison. 2.5 years in state prison. That meth lab was as a result of a tip that was given to the state police, or to the city police department, and the Adirondack Drug Task Force. Investigation occurred, and as a result, Jamie Gaudet, Chris Perrier, Aaron Prim were all arrested on that investigation. July 19th, also in the town of Plattsburgh, there was a meth lab where 2 individuals were arrested, Michael Meggs and Francis Estes. On that charge, the defendants, once again, with information that the task force had, went to the location, and the meth lab was found to be present, and those 2 individuals were arrested, and Michael Meggs has already appeared in court and pled guilty to the manufacture of methamphetamine, the felony. The last case was the case that Captain Fountain made reference to in Moores. John DeCoste and 4 other individuals were arrested. Mike Stone, Wendy Campbell, Tara Bodine, and Stephanie Ford. Each of those defendants were charged with the unlawful manufacture of meth, and one of the individuals is a second felony offender, so he is facing some enhanced sentencing guidelines. That investigation was the result of a execution of a search warrant, or an arrest warrant for John DeCoste. During the execution of the warrant, the police were able to locate the meth lab. So in total, these 4 cases that we're dealing with, there's been 11 individuals that have been arrested and are all facing a felony misdemeanor prosecution. We've had a number of these cases that have arisen here in Clinton County. Other members here will discuss how the impact has in Clinton County as opposed to the rest of the state and the country. Back in 2010, we had a large arrest that involved 2 other individuals in the Beacon County area. Both of those individuals, because of they were charged with possession of a controlled substance in the 2nd degree, which is an A2 felony. And on 2 of the arrests that we've had so far before, they are facing additional charges when we get results back from the lab. They result in the drug possession of controlled substance charges as well. That's all I have regarding the cases that we've had at this point in time since July 15th.
Thank you.
At this point, Mr. Williams from the EPA.
Thank you, Cap.
We can just move over this way a little bit here, because I think he's going to be referring to that.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I've been asked to speak today to bring everybody up on the trends of methamphetamine trafficking and manufacturing in the state of New York. As you can see from the map here to my right now from January 1st up and through August 15th, there have been 89 labs seized by law enforcement or reported by law enforcement in the state of New York. 8 of them have been up here in the Plattsburgh area. The vast majority of the remaining, as you can see, have been in central, western, and the southern tier of the state of New York. We've got a couple. We've got one down in Long Island that was an MDA lab, and another one out in Buffalo that was a DMT lab. But the others are all methamphetamine, and out of those 87, 81 were the one-pot method, where we have our violators combining a cocktail of chemicals into a plastic 2-liter bottle, usually a soda pop bottle, and then letting the chemical reaction take place. This is a very dangerous way to manufacture methamphetamine due to the fact that they're putting it in a plastic soda bottle and the chemical reaction generates heat. So therefore, sometimes the bottle melts, and since lithium from batteries are being utilized once the chemical reaction starts and the lithium is exposed to the air, if the bottle melts, then you have a spontaneous fire that is created. So the manufacture of methamphetamine in and of itself is very dangerous. It can put the general public and innocent individuals at risk. There's been a number of house fires that have occurred because of these plastic bottles melting and the resulting fire. You also have not only the threat to the individual manufacturing or using the substance, but you also have the environmental threat when these used chemicals and byproducts of the manufacture of methamphetamine are just casually tossed in the trash by the folks that manufacture this poison. And these chemicals can eventually make their way to the landfills, and the chemicals can leach into the groundwater. I've been doing this for a long time. I don't want to tell war stories, but I worked methamphetamine labs in California where we actually had to go tell the neighbors that were on well water that they needed to have their well water tested because it could be contaminated. So it victimizes a lot of people in a lot of various ways. And we want your help in letting and teaching the public the dangers of not only the use of methamphetamine, but the manufacture of amphetamine. And I'm going to take this map down right now, and forgive me for the quality of the pictures, but this is the cost to the user of methamphetamine. All right, these people were using methamphetamine for maybe a few years at a time, or even for a very short period of time over a number of months. And just look at the havoc that it wreaked on their bodies. And I believe that the sheriff is going to speak later on, but there's also a serious cost in treating these folks once they're in law enforcement's custody, as well as the cost it takes to investigate these crimes, the cost that it takes to clean up a clandestine methamphetamine lab scene. We're just to clean up a lab scene, we're talking between $5,000 and $10,000, and that's just for the cleanup. That doesn't count the overtime or the salaries of all the personnel involved. So I wish I had better news for you. We're on pace to set we have set a record in the state of New York this year for methamphetamine lab seizures. The previous high was back in 2003 when the number stood at 73. As you can tell, we're at 89 already, and we still have through December 31st to go. So we're well on pace to be up in the 120, 130 meth lab seizure range by the time the year is over with. The DEA has a very robust training program and public awareness program when it comes to methamphetamine manufacture and trafficking. I have an agent full-time that travels the state teaching law enforcement personnel what to be on the lookout for, and the DEA invests a lot of money in training our state and local counterparts, some of their officers, in order to be able to safely respond to a meth lab. Because it's just not walking in with your rain jacket or your bulletproof vest on with your badge and saying police. In order to safely enter a methamphetamine clan lab site, you have to be suited up in an environmentally secure suit, a self-contained breathing apparatus, so that, again, it costs a lot of money to outfit these officers and agents so that they can respond and process these sites safely. So therefore, we really need your help in educating the public that this stuff is not safe by any stretch of the imagination. And if they have any information on folks that are engaged in the manufacture or the distribution of methamphetamine, we certainly would love to receive a call from them giving us the details. We won't ask for their name, we won't ask for them to ID themselves, but if they can give us some information so we can get these folks off the street, that's what we're here for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. At this time, I'd like to invite Chief Roscoe from the Westwood City Police Department.
Thank you. One of the things that we're doing as a team of law enforcement is obviously information sharing. We've talked about this every time we have a press conference. We tout about our interagency capabilities of working well together, and that has obviously been seen right now in the task force that encompasses everybody that you see here and some agencies that you don't see. One of the latest things that we're going to do is Plattsburgh Police Department has just purchased a software company called Leads Online, where we're going to be able to track the meth precursors, in real time. There are a couple companies out there. It's no cost to the taxpayers because it's drug seized money that the task force has gotten for us. It's a marginal cost at best. It doesn't cost anything to the pharmacies. In fact, as a customer going to a pharmacy where you go and you have to, some particular pharmacies in our county where you have to actually write out in a book and push out your identification for your unit. That stuff's not real time. Investigators have to go there, they have to go through the books, they have to kind of flip through those pages, try to find, where there are suspicious activity. This software program is our barcoded. You walk into the pharmacy, you get your license, the person swipes it in, the precursor, the pseudoephedrine or whatever is obviously scanned in, it's real time. And what it does is, it's nationwide. For an example, we could go into this program and we can tell you who's now purchasing, the precursors, if they met their legal limit, how many grams in a month, who's been turned down, addresses, phone numbers. So this is going to be a great resource for us. So right away, and I used it today, before even coming over here, and it flagged just in New York State alone. There were like a half a dozen suspicious activities where people purchased methamphetamine, purchased a precursor for methamphetamine, and 45 minutes later went to another store to try to buy more pseudoephedrine and were denied. So it's a pretty great tool that everyone's going to have now.
As we prepare for things, new information comes in, so if you just give it 1 second here, for sure. At this time, the Sheriff Dave Favreau from Clinton County will say a few words.
Welcome, everybody. I have one question. Why have we all assembled today? You've heard many of my colleagues say that we've assembled primarily for education. We have. We need to get a message out and make the message loud and clear to everybody in our precious community up here in Clinton County that we've got an issue that we're working diligently on in law enforcement, but that should be a concern of everybody that lives up here. It's starting to impact many things. Our environment, the people that are in our environment. We all are stakeholders here in Clinton County. We all have families and interest in Clinton County. Therefore, it's even more important than ever. And you've heard all of us at different times gather together and ask for the help of the public. It's more important now than ever that people in the public become the eyes and the ears of law enforcement. That if you see suspicious activity, you overhear activities at a drugstore, or you see somebody moving into the neighborhood, equipment that's being brought into the neighborhood, groups of people, please notify law enforcement. We will have additional information about other avenues of being able to make those notifications, but any of us are very easy to get a hold of through the New York State Police, the Sheriff's Department, the City PD, DEA, Border Patrol. All those numbers are very accessible to everybody. Reach out, pass the information on to someone. We're not so needy about what your name is or where you live. We want the information that you have so we can try and prevent something. Why should you get involved and do that? It's quite simple. Obviously, we're trying to preserve something special that we have with a good quality of life up here in Clinton County, but the expense that everything you've heard about today and will hear about is exorbitant. We would not be able to sit up here a couple hours and actually inform you of what it is costing you as an individual and as taxpayers to incarcerate these people after they get apprehended, to provide the proper medical care to these people after they get apprehended? What about those that have not yet been apprehended? Hopefully soon will be. They're in our hospitals, they're in our medical facilities. They were probably at one time people that were in the workforce that we've lost in the workforce. They were their neighbors, their family people. All of this now, they go into a jail environment and we end up having to pay for their health care, a higher level of health care than they've ever received before. One of the biggest problems that we see with meth abusers is dental care. Their teeth erode, as you can tell by the photographs up here and up here. The health issues, of which I'd like to get into significant detail, but I have to be careful because of HIPAA regulations in certain cases. But the health issues that we see in a jail environment is astounding. It's absolutely shocking to see what we have to put in. We budgeted in 2012 $475,000 for medical care for our inmates for the entire year. We are well at 3/4 of that budget, beyond 3/4 of that budget already, and our dental care is about 10 times what we budgeted. 2 years ago, we spent about $1,800 on dental care. This year, it'll be over $15,000. It's not by choice. It's not because we want to provide a certain level of dental care. New York State has a standard that we have to follow. All of that comes out of the taxpayers' pockets. The cost of the enforcement from all these agencies that you've heard about, the overtime, the number of staff that's there, the relief for the staff, the equipment that's utilized. Even though we have the innovation of Plattsburgh PD, the State Police, Border Patrol, Sheriff's Office, and utilizing asset forfeiture funds to buy equipment, we still are faced with some serious expenses for staffing and for other issues that aren't covered under those things. That again, all comes out of taxpayer dollars. The problem is far beyond just a law enforcement problem. As you can see, it's a community problem. And it's an issue where everybody is affected by it and everybody needs to get involved with it. Locally, I believe this year, we have had, this year, that figure, 35? Yes. We have had 35 incidents at the local hospital that are directly related to the topic matter that we're discussing today. I am sure with these 35 cases, although I don't have the exact data in front of me, I am sure that you're not talking people that have Blue Cross Blue Shield and well-to-do insurance plans. So that cost is borne by the medical society, which is passed on obviously to taxpayers and the people who have to pay for these costs later. Every day you're impacted by these labs and by these individuals. Their concern isn't your quality of life. Their concern isn't your families. Their concern isn't what they're doing to themselves or to the environment. So it needs to become your concern so that we can curtail as much as possible the meth labs that come into our community and the impact that it's having on our society as a whole, and what is happening as a stem off from this. As everybody has alluded to, there are numerous other crimes that we see in the community as a result of this, where they steal money to go into a drugstore and buy pseudoephedrine. They may go in and actually steal other drugs as well. Crime doesn't stand still in other areas because the rise of meth labs in our area is up. Other crime is going on in conjunction with that, and we all need to be astute and be on top of that as well. In conclusion, I think one thing that we haven't discussed that I'd like to be able to quickly mention is we've talked about paid resources and we've talked about the staff, the men and women from the DEA task force and all these agencies go out and put a lot of effort into doing this, and they risk their lives. They are the heroes behind all of these cases and getting these cases closed up, and I think we all owe them a great thanks. In addition to volunteer firefighters and paid firefighters. I mean, these people have to go in, they have to decontaminate, they have to control these situations. They're not exactly sure what they're walking into and what it may turn into, and in most cases in rural Clinton County, these are volunteers. These aren't people that are on payroll, that are people that are going to collect a check after. These are volunteers that are out there doing it to make their community a safer place. I think all of that needs to be factored in when we talk about the exorbitant expense that the use of meth is having in our community. I thank everybody for attending, and I thank the public for their support that they've given in the past, and now more than ever, we implore your assistance in helping us resolve this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. At this time, Lieutenant Brett Davison from the New York State Police is going to come to discuss the deaths associated with drug abuse. We'll give you some statistics. As I had mentioned previously over the years, it's very difficult for the New York State Police to release a drug overdose because there's a time frame involved from the time that we respond to a death through autopsy, through the analysis of the toxicology, the verification and ruling as to the cause of death. So therefore, it's difficult to get timely information. But we think it's very important. Lieutenant Davison will give you some details concerning the number of people in our community who have died in recent years as a result of drug abuse.
As everyone said, obviously, we're facing the fast rising meth problem in our area. We still have to face all the other issues that are going on. As been mentioned, the property crimes that are caused by the addictions to meth, prescription drugs, the normal illicit drugs that we know about. One statistic that we've been keeping track of for the state police is since January 2010, we've had 19 people who died as a result of an accidental overdose in our troop, and that's not counting any of the other agencies that may have investigated those type of incidents themselves. So most of those were involving prescription drug abuse, but some of the data is startling. A lot of these people are women. One woman had 14 different drugs that she had in her system at the time, and her death was really an accidental overdose. So not only are we facing all the costs of the meth and all these other drugs, we've got emergency room visits and actual people overdosing on this stuff. And as the meth becomes more prevalent in our area, I think you'll start to see that drug start to show up in the toxicology results of some of these accidental overdoses.
Chief, if you could just comment on that.
Again, with our agency as well, we've had, several accidental overdose deaths. One girl recently that we had over inside the city of Plattsburgh was partying at night, was actually shooting up the drugs, prescription abuse, and was actually shooting the drugs into her breast. And sitting at the kitchen table, went and laid down and died. Person that we had dealt with in the past, as a young person through the years. One of the other things too to mention that the task force members will tell you about. Everybody that we interview, that we get in these cases today, we're finding that the vast majority of them have hepatitis from sharing needles. In fact, I don't think, I think only one person that I've ever interviewed when they've been in arrest said they didn't have hepatitis, and I said, when you tested, they said I haven't been tested. They just made the assumption they weren't. I know the last several that I spoke to have all said that they were hepatitis positive. So, it's a lot of things that, people don't think about, like the sheriff said, with the volunteer firemen. Another complaint that we get at the police department a lot is discarded needles. We've had the university call up and complain that in the parking lot, someone has been discarding used hypodermic needles in the parking lot. Our public works employees, picking up the trash, they're picking up these bags, they're throwing things, needles are falling out. It's very easy for them to be exposed to something very dangerous. The bottles, the 2-liter bottles that get discarded. Kids go around and they're collecting bottles, trying to return bottles to get some money. Any of these byproducts that, that were used to make methamphetamine, they would never know. Goes to your store, recycling places. Those people are touching those discarded bottles. So it's something that a lot of people don't realize. You watch the TV, watch the news, and you see a person get arrested, and you say, well, it has an effect on that person or that person's family. But if you're sitting at your house, you may be exposed to something you don't even know you're exposed to. Thank you.
I would also like to, the agency heads have been speaking. We're very fortunate to have somebody who actually goes into these scenes, the boots on the ground, if you will. who has far more direct knowledge concerning this than any of us standing up here, I think. I can't speak for everybody, but at least myself. I know, but Sergeant Catalano.
Good afternoon. My name's Dana Padalano. I'm the team leader for the New York State Police Contaminated Crime Scene Emergency Response Team. It's a team that was developed back in 2002 to respond to WMD issues, weapons of mass destruction, as well as clandestine drug laboratory investigations. Currently, there are 5 teams throughout the New York State area. One of the teams, which I'm responsible for, covers Troop B exclusively. The members of the team are all New York State hazardous materials technicians through the Office of Fire Prevention and Control. In addition, they've been trained through the DEA and Quantico in the clandestine laboratory technician course. The responsibilities of this team is a resource for sheriff's departments, city PDs, town, village police departments, as well as New York State Police. When they come upon a methamphetamine lab, clandestine laboratory, whether it's DMT or C2B, which has also been located in the southern part of the state, it's a resource. Much like a hazmat team would be for the fire service, we'll respond. We assist the case agent with assessing the lab scene, which you can see by the photos on the table. It's a much different crime scene. We've got solvents, we've got oxidizers, we've got sodium hydroxide, acetone, ether. All of these chemicals individually are a hazard and dangerous to human life. These individuals are mixing these components along with ephedrine or pseudoephedrine and making the methamphetamine and ingesting. If you can imagine ingesting any one of those chemicals individually, what the effects are going to have. It's the corrosion of the teeth, and mouth injuries, and mouth sores that they have, Sheriff alluded to having to treat. All of these chemicals in the body are starting to affect internal. Not too many people, normal human beings, will ingest corrosives as a habit. These individuals are mixing a cocktail of methamphetamine with those components, and the outcome is not so. They're responding to the clan labs. We'll respond, we use the support of the fire departments. The firefighters will provide decontamination support for my team. We'll go in and do an assessment of air quality, air monitoring, and try to determine what we actually have in that. Is it explosive? Is it corrosive? Different equipment, different monitoring equipment that we have, it's a detriment. If it's too corrosive, it'll burn out the instruments that we have here. It'll damage the breathing apparatus that we utilize. So if you think of this as just a secluded issue that's in the rural areas, think of apartment buildings. If they're making meth in an apartment building, you've got explosive environment and an atmosphere in apartment 2 for about 1, 3, 4. They don't even know what they have in there. You get a fire in the middle of the night, now it affects everyone. Fire department doesn't know what they're going into, they know they have an apartment. And later on, we find out that we have active lab building. Through the responses throughout the state that I've been involved with, there's 3 different methods of manufacturing meth. There's the red phosphorus method, there's the anhydrous method, and this one-pot method, the shake and bake method, is very popular. With the legislation changes of purchasing ephedrine, pseudoephedrine, it's changed the way people are manufacturing. They're not tracking anhydrous like they were in southern tier with farmers, nurse tanks being broken into or stolen. So they've taken another avenue of manufacturing meth. And with that, these one-pot methods are very unstable. We stated earlier, plastic 2-liter bottles, the Gatorade bottles, and Powerade bottles. And the shake and bake method is pretty much what it is. They'll mix the chemicals in there, tumble it, shake it, and wait for the product to form. It is very unstable. There are explosive hazards. Like I said, there's flammability, oxidizers, corrosive, all of which are a detriment to law enforcement that are going on the original arrest warrant or search warrant. And the responsibilities of the CSER team is to mitigate it, process the scene, collect the evidence, and turn it over to the case. Thank you.
Thank you. I would also like to take this opportunity, if I could, to acknowledge and thank Jim Burns, from the DEA, and the resident agent in charge of the DEA, Dave Blue, who's way back there, for their hospitality and running this office space, which is much more accommodating than what we have available to us elsewhere. We greatly appreciate that, as well as all your support for the year. The other thing is that if I can make one correction, I made a mistake earlier, and I just want to make sure as you report upon this. Mistakes happen, as I explained to Mr. Burns yesterday. Only one thing worse than being left out, being the one that left you out. And the DEA was also a significant manpower that was provided at all of these incidents, and Morris Courts, we thank you for that. The other thing is the number of people, and I don't have an exact number, but I am estimating 25 people at least for a single response. A great number of those people are overtime, so it is very significant. The other,
The general expense of what's incurred for the cleanup?
do I have an idea? Okay, yeah, go ahead. But one other thing before I do, because I'll get off track. The other thing is on behalf of all law enforcement here, I think we owe a great deal of gratitude and appreciation for just Attorney Wiley, who is literally available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to do these things happen, field legal questions, and get recommendations or provide us with the legal input this way. So we want everybody to want to thank you.
Relative to the cleanup of the meth lab scenes, once my team has processed it, we'll collect the evidence. We'll also categorize our solvents, organic peroxide, oxidizers, and if we have any explosive materials. It's categorized, and it's all left for the hazardous waste hauler, who is by contract through the DEA, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, to come out and pick up this material. Now, been responding to meth labs since 1999, and I've yet to find a material safety data sheet on any of them. And there's no listing of what these individuals are actually utilizing to manufacture methamphetamine. They may have a sodium hydroxide container, red double I, drain cleaner. Bottle in and of itself, it's fine, we know what it is. But once they start mixing it, we have no idea what they have. So we do pH testing, a bunch of different tests to categorize it for the waste hauler to come out to take this away. And on average, through Scott Adams, DEA said some of these labs are processed, the smaller ones, anywhere from $3,500 up to $10,000 or more. And depending on how much material we have as hazardous waste, that determines what the price is going to be for the waste haulers.
Is that just the expense for the removal of the toxin?
Correct. That's just the hazardous waste itself. Whatever is found in the building that's not identifiable through labeling or packaging, it's an unknown. The clothing that they have on their bodies is contaminated. They've been doing an active cook, which you see through these photos. Those clothes are contaminated. Personal protective equipment that we wear to process these things is now hazardous waste, and it has to be hauled away. And that expense has to come from somewhere. It's paid through asset forfeiture or the taxpayers.
Thank you very much. At this time, if there's any questions, we'll be glad to answer those questions.
One of the numbers that was thrown out, and I'm not really sure to whom I'm addressing this, whoever can answer it, but 89 meth lab busts this year in New York State. 8 of them right up here in the Clinton County area, which at a glance seems disproportionate considering the size of our population here. When you think about all the other population centers around the state. I'm wondering to what we attribute that. I mean, is it just a matter of the interstate being where it is, or is there something else going on?
There are a number of factors. Would you like to address that?
I wish I had a succinct answer for you. It can vary that somebody just comes into the area and is somewhat familiar on how to cook methamphetamine and gets a number of other people involved and acts like for lack of a better word, the teacher for them and shows them how to mix it. It seems to come in waves. Like I said, back in 2003, the number of meth labs seized was at 73. And then it decreased for a number of years. The last few years, we've seen it increasing, and this year we saw it really jump up. So I wish I could give you, A, B, and C, the reasons for that, but we're still working on trying to figure that out ourselves. I can tell you that in the central New York area, the southern tier, and towards the western part of New York, where we've seen the majority of the methamphetamine lab activity. That's also the areas where we're seeing a lot of activity in the past half year to a year with the synthetics, the bath salts. So they sort of, I think, go hand in hand. When somebody can't get one, they look for another. But why all of a sudden it jumps up in an area, that could be any number of factors. Somebody just getting out of jail that learned, unfortunately, a new trade in jail, a new skill, or somebody moving into the area from like the West or the Midwest that was cooking out there.
There's possibly one other reason. The dedication and perseverance of the men and women that are on camera, and the DEA office up in this area in the support. They are gathering the intelligence and actually pursuing these leads aggressively day or night, and the results speak for themselves. I don't think it's just isolated to this area. I think other areas that have not had these detected, I still think that it's occurring in that area. They just haven't found it at this time.
Could somebody go over again the flags that go up that neighbors should look for, and who they should call it? Do they call 911? Who do they call if they suspect something? Well, I mean, certainly they can call, 911 is really for emergencies, so I would recommend 2 minutes, either in the phone book or online. You can get the local office numbers for any one of the agencies, and all the information does get centrally brought back to the task force. So that's easy. But there are a lot of things, friends and families, you have a feel for what's going on in your family members. Certainly, isolation, change in behaviors, loss of jobs. Certainly, people that are, buying the precursors, they go to the stores, they buy the pseudoephedrine, the ephedrine. They ask family members to get it for them. They ask friends to get it for them because they're obviously limited to how much they can get. Certainly other things, if you go to a house and, and you saw some of the precursors or, the discarded bottles, but pretty much, you'll get a feel from, what you see. We get a lot of phone calls from people who will call us up and say, and I say I'm talking about all law enforcement. We'll get phone calls. There's a lot of foot traffic, a lot of car traffic, people, in and out of this apartments. We always encourage people to take down plate numbers, be descriptive of what you see, If you don't think it's right, call us. That's what we're there for. I mean, it's not like we're being inconvenienced. The more information, intelligence we get, it gets a piece of a puzzle, put something together for us. And there are also websites you can go to, like a National Crime Prevention, .org, and I can give you a list of I brought a list of websites that give you methamphetamine, things to look out for, websites that anyone can go to, .org sites. The White House drug policy has stuff on it too as well.
Well, one other thing, as far as the checking, is there an odor associated versus, can you explain that and what the public can, some of the things the public can report?
In addition to what Chief said, there's chemical odors that you'll be cognizant of. Acetone. So it could be used as nail polish remover, but they don't wear nail polish, and it's a significant odor carrying through the neighborhood or right around a certain house. That might be an indicator. Strange chemical odors. Smelling gas. There's no vehicles. There's no motorized equipment that need it. What is burning? They're burning trash out back in their backyard. Some batteries that are being burned. It's not a normal practice. Large amounts of trash, as you can see with the photos that we have out here. Coleman fuel in gallon containers or half-gallon containers, quarts. They don't camp. Why do we have it? Coffee filters, rubber gloves, masks. It doesn't fit the scenario. We'll make a call. We can always check it out and say, no, it's just something suspicious, but it's nothing that's drug making. We'll take that further.
Is there something that can be done, like, the state's taking actions to, prevent bath salts from getting into people's hands? What can you, if anything, can be done to prevent, these meth labs from popping up?
But I don't think we're gonna be able to defer the meth labs from popping up as been discussed. The production of it is, once it's learned, is relatively simple, once all the ingredients are obtained to making that. One of the, probably the biggest deterrents that we can do is to enhance the sentencing guidelines that exist in New York State presently. On the state level, as I've indicated, the production of meth in and of itself, or the sale of meth, depending on the quantity that's sold, is a D felony, punishable by the sentencing guidelines 2.5 years max for a first-time offender. When you have a large amount of the meth that's been produced, and we can fit that into an A2 felony level, then we're talking to approximately 10 years, that a sentence that can be imposed on the individual. I think that this is one drug that we see, such drastic side effects from, and what can occur from the production of it. So what we, as an association, started the District Attorneys Association in New York State, we're going to start making a push with our state legislators to see about getting sentences enhanced for these charges. And I think that will at least, it'll take the people that are making it from that off the street a little bit longer. A number of these individuals that we have here are people that learned how to make it locally, so they're out doing the same thing and teaching other people how to do it. And I think that's just why we've seen an increase in our area, and as Captain McFallon indicated, and I joined that, the efforts that our local task force, through the DEA, the state police, the city police, the sheriff's department, and all our other federal agencies put together, the work that they do, the legwork, it's just incredible. They're here to take this off the street, put these people behind bars so they can be prosecuted.
You're interviewing these people after you arrest them, trying to get any information possible. Are you seeing a trend at all in why they're starting this? I think a lot of people would be like, why would you get into meth in the first place? What are these people you're arresting saying about getting into this addictive habit?
You've interviewed a number of these people, right? And you can
The ones that I interview, we specifically do interviews while getting information about the crime that they're being alleged to have committed with them. But also, in the course of talking, we talk about how to get started, we talk about gateway drugs, whatever. But quite frankly, they talk about prescription abuse. And they talk about, the ease of getting it, from friends and family, from buying it, from people they know. The methamphetamine, the last 2 interviews that I was involved with the task force, it's stuff that you can go buy. You can go to the store and you can buy the pseudoephedrine and the ephedrine, and you come back and you can buy the precursors, at a hardware store, at some stuff at the pharmacy, even the other products. And they come home and they make it. And we see a lot of the other crimes, heroin, crack, powder cocaine. Those things are, usually delivered from other areas to our area, with people transporting it. And so there's some risk, but it seems that, I'm not sure who spoke about it, but you'll get somebody who has some knowledge on how to cook it, and they're doing this preparation together with a group of people, and then the other person is learning. And so you get one person who's pretty skilled at producing the methamphetamine, now has taught somebody else, who's teaching somebody else, and it's all local. I mean, if we want to get, and I'm sure Danny could walk into a store right now, get everything you need to produce methamphetamine for us right now, if you really need to. It's not like we have to drive to New York City, wait in an alleyway, wait for someone to give us something that, it's all right here easy to get.
So you don't think this problem is isolated to Clinton County? Do you think there's meth labs in Essex and Franklin County that just haven't been discovered?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is not a localized problem. This is a nationwide problem. And we're fortunate because we're on the back end of it. There are a lot of places that are a lot worse. But again, we're sitting here, kind of, touting some success. But to be very candid, we do have great men and women that work really hard. And they're constantly getting phone calls from tip calls and informants. And it's nothing for us to be on the phone talking to each other saying, we know we're going to be doing another one. You guys are always waiting for us to tell you something. We're waiting for our people. And they're very busy. And there's a lot going on.
Have you just kind of stumbled upon them, or have you been told?
No, this is police work. There are obviously times when you'll get a tip call, but again, a tip call is just that. You have to then employ all your training and resources to be able to properly investigate, the alleged crime and bring it to the district attorney's office for, a successful prosecution.
I got an email today from the Attorney General here. There was a press release about 2 nurses in the Plattsburgh area who were stealing prescription drugs, blank bottles. Is this just a problem? And I know this is a little bit separate from meth, but is the problem of this drug abuse becoming more pervasive here across many people, or is this just something that you're picking up on with more police work, like you were saying?
The only thing is we want to make it clear that we're not addressing the issue
That's
concerning
fine.
the Attorney General's
I think with drug abuse in general, there isn't one person in this room or one agency that can come down and give you, this is how it unfolds. This is why somebody becomes addicted. This is the pattern that they're going to follow. Everyone is different and unique. And we all learn from each of these, and that's why through the networking and information sharing, you talk to each other, you find something different during each case and each scene. There's no stereotype of who is going to engage in prescription drug abuse, who is going to engage in marijuana use or alcohol use. There's multiple of reasons. I think one of the questions we've all fielded and we've all had discussions at different times is, do you think it's the poor economy that's causing such an increase in the drug problem? I mean, this has been going on for decades. This isn't new. I think the first formulation of crystal meth was 1919, if memory serves me correctly, in Japan. And this has been around for nearly 100 years, and even prior to that. Why do people abuse it in different forms? There's a multitude of reasons. It could be personal needs. It could be family backgrounds. It could be easeability. It can be from boredom. It can be from economy. Poor job performance. Poor school performance. Parents being gone all the time. Parents being on top of their kids all the time. I think we've all seen arrests of prominent people, arrests of low-income people, no-income people. So as far as a typical stereotype and who do you look for and what type of person does it attack, the answer is anybody. The answer is anybody. And that's why people just need to stay on their toes. And when you see something out of the ordinary, well, that's not my business. It is your business. This is your society. It's your business to get involved and to let somebody know. And it's our business, as the chief, I believe, stated, we'll make the determination if the tip or the information is valid. If it needs more investigation, we'll pass it on to the appropriate people and work on it. But you need to make it your business because it's having a big impact on your society, and it certainly will have a prolific impact on the future of your society, your children, grandchildren, etc.
Just a quick clarification question for the chief. The computer software program, does the state police and the Adirondack Drug Task Force all have access to that information, just not Plattsburgh City?
Yes, I mean,
Okay.
it's something that everyone's over. It's web-based. You can put in your username and password. You can do it by a nationwide check. You can do it by state. You can do it by specific locations, zip codes. You can put in names, date of births. It cross-references all this stuff, all real time. Pharmacies that provide information to it have access to their own information that they provide, but they don't have access to the stuff that we get. And this software program is just fantastic. I mean, it's all real time. So
What's the name of it?
There's a couple different ones, but the one that we're gonna use right now is called Leads Online.
Leads.
Like a lead, like you have a lead, like LEADS online. And they have like a website where you have like frequently asked questions. And there's 3 components to it. And so when you get there, I mean, we're not talking about it here today, but the other 2 components that it has to this is, pawn shops and scrap metals. So some other crimes that we've been dealing with in the area, with people stealing, copper thefts and stuff, they go. So what we're hoping is that, these commercial businesses will participate. It's free. They don't, a lot of them are set up already. They don't have to buy software. They don't have to buy hardware. The things that they're currently using, they can use to upload the information. Free technical support. So it's a win for everybody.
And just to expound upon that, I don't think there's one tool any of these agencies have that's exclusive. We share whatever we have with other agencies, whether it be staffing or investigative equipment or whatever resources.
I gotta admit, I'm very naive in this. I'm assuming that this is, the finished product here is a powder, is that what they're ending up with? What the actual product they're producing is?
Well, yes, the end results for the powder, but there's also methamphetamine in solution when you get to these lab sites that is still in process, but most of the time it is the end result. They want the powder so that they can snort it or dissolve it in water to inject.
Quick question for you, Special Agent. Are these labs, are they for personal use or are they for, producing it to sell and make a profit?
Well, we see it both ways. Some of them are for folks that just want to generate enough for their personal use or to share with some friends. And then we see organized groups that will go out and pull their resources. They will go out and they will smurf to buy the pseudoephedrine cold products that they need, and then go out and buy the other materials, and then have multiple one-pot cooks going on so that they can produce more, so that they can sell it for a profit. Now, mind you, with these one-pot methods, you get a very low yield. I mean, we're talking in the gram range when you have these one-pot cooks. They're not like the traditional super labs that you may have heard about out west or whatever, where they were capable of cooking 50 to 100 pounds of methamphetamine at a time. These are very small yields, but they usually have multiple, one-pot meth cooks going on.
You answer questions now, George?
Yeah, I'm going to go get this on television. With all respect to law enforcement here, I want to make sure we get the story right. Oh, is that you?
If you'd like to speak to somebody individually, please feel free to. We'll send everyone out. Otherwise, thank you very much. And thank you for your assistance in bringing this to the